Ladies and gentlemen, 4 years ago I appeared before the people of Knox County for the purpose of defending my political actions upon the compromise measures of 1850 and the Kansas and Nebraska bill. Those of you before me who were present then will recall that I have indicated myself for supporting those two propositions by the fact that they rested upon the great fundamental principle that the people of each state and each territory have the right and ought to be permitted to exercise the right of regulating their own domestic institutions in their own way. Subject to no other limitation or restriction than that which the Constitution of the United States imposes upon them. I then asked the people of Illinois to decide whether that principle was right or wrong. If it was and is right, then the compromise measures of 1850 were right. And consequently, the Kansas and Nebraska bill, based upon the same principles, must necessarily have been right. The Kansas and Nebraska bill stated in so many words that it was the true intent and meaning of the act not to legislate slavery into any territory, nor to exclude it therefrom, but to leave the people thereof perfectly free to form and regulate their own domestic institutions in their own way, subject only to the Constitution of the United States. For the last 4 years, I have devoted all my energies in private and in public to commend that principle to the American people. And I apprehend that no honest man can doubt the fidelity with which, under all circumstances, I have stood by it. During the past year, a question arose in the Congress of the United States whether this principle would be violated by the admission of Kansas into the Union under the Lecompton Constitution. In my opinion, the attempt to force Kansas in under that Constitution was a gross violation of the principles enunciated in the compromise measures of 1850 and the Kansas and Nebraska bill of 1854, and therefore I led off in the fight against the Lecompton Constitution and conducted it until the attempt to carry that Constitution through Congress was abandoned. And I could appeal to all men, friends and foes, Democrats and Republicans, Northern men and Southern men, that during the whole of that contest, I carried the banner of popular sovereignty aloft and never allowed it to trail in the dust, nor lowered my flag until victory perched upon our arms. When the Lecompton Constitution was defeated, the question arose in the minds of those who advocated it what they should next resort to in order to carry out their views. They devised a measure known as the English Bill and granted a general amnesty and political pardon to all men who had fought against the Lecompton Constitution, provided they would support that bill. I, for one, did not choose to accept the pardon, nor to avail myself of the amnesty granted on that basis. The fact that the supporters of Lecompton were willing to forgive all differences of opinion at that time, in the event that those who had opposed it would support the English bill, was an admission that they did not think that opposition to Lecompton impaired a man standing in the Democratic Party. Now the question arises, What was that English bill, which certain men are now attempting to make a test of political orthodoxy in this country? It provided in substance that the Lecompton Constitution should be sent back to the people of Kansas for their adoption or rejection in an election which was held in August last. And in case they refused admission under it, that Kansas should be kept out of the Union until she had 93,420 inhabitants. I was in favor of sending that Constitution back to the people of Kansas in order to enable them to say whether it was their act and deed and embodied their will. But the other proposition, that if they refused to come into the Union under it, they were to be kept out until they had double or triple the population they then had, I never would sanction by my vote. The reason why I could not sanction it is to be found in the fact that, by the Lecompton Constitution, if the people of Kansas had only agreed to become a slave-holding state under the Lecompton Constitution, they could have done so with 35,000 people. But if they insisted upon being a free state, as they had a right to do, they were to be punished by being kept out of the Union until they had nearly 3 times that population. I then said in my place in the Senate, as I now say to you, that whenever Kansas has population enough for a slave state, she has population enough for a free state. I have never given a vote, and I never intend to record one, making an odious and unjust distinction between the different states of the Union. I hold it to be a fundamental principle of our Republican form of government that all the states of this Union, old and new, free and slave, stand upon an exact equality. Equality among the different states of the Union is a cardinal principle upon which all our institutions rest. Whenever, therefore, you make a discrimination, saying to a slave state that it can be admitted with 35,000 people, and to a free state that it shall not be admitted until it has 93,000 or 100,000 people, you are throwing the whole weight of the federal government into the balance in favor of one class of states against another.
That's right. Yes.
I have always declared in the Senate my willingness, and I am now willing to adopt the general rule that no territory shall ever become a state until it has the requisite population for a member of Congress according to the then existing ratio. But while I am now willing to adopt that general rule, I was not willing and would not consent to make an exception of Kansas as punishment for insisting on her right to do just as she pleased in the formation of her Constitution.
That's right. That's right.
It is proper that I should remark here that my opposition to the Lecompton Constitution did not rest upon the peculiar position taken by the people of Kansas on the subject of slavery. I held then and hold now that if the people of Kansas want to make a slave state, it is their right to make one and to be received into the Union under it. If on the contrary, they want a free state, it is their right to have it, and no man should resist their admission because they ask it under the one or the other. I hold to the great principle of self-government, which asserts the right of every people to decide for themselves the nature and character of the fundamental institutions under which they are to live.
That's right.